Gotcha. Hey everybody, good evening and welcome to Fish Hunt Northwest. Duane Inglin and the crew, Kelly, Barnum Tommy Eidson here in studio, and we will be joined later this evening by Chef Kelly Lance O'Neill and his wonderful co-host Sheri in the kitchen with the recipe of the week, which I'm really looking forward to. So we got that. Be sure to stick around for that. Hey, before we get too far along, I do have to say, big shout out, as you kids say, to David
Yes.
Butterfield, our IT producer guy. This guy has been working nonstop day and night. We would not be bringing this show live to you this evening if it wasn't for David. So big pat on the back to you, my man. Because
Absolutely.
all this equipment and stuff is
100%.
all on his back, right? So with that, hey, Fish Hunt Northwest is presented by Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate Pacific Commons, located in Puyallup, Washington. You're going to see us interacting with them a lot, showcasing homes of the week and a whole lot more information in their regard. So very happy to have them on board as a title sponsor, doing great things for us there.
Yeah.
For those of you joining us on our YouTube channel this evening, watching Fish Hunt Northwest live for our premiere show, we thank you for that. Join us each and every week here on our YouTube channel. Fish Hunt Northwest will be live every Thursday night, 6 to 8 p.m. West Coast time. So make sure you subscribe to our channel, share this out with everybody, let them know where we're at and how they can find us, and follow us on our YouTube as we continue to build more information there as the weeks, months, and years go on. Also, we are on all your social media platforms. Connect with us on Facebook, give us a like, and get involved in the conversation. We
Absolutely.
put a lot of time and effort daily and post up informational stuff there that we want you all to be a part of. We want pictures of hunting, fishing, recipes. We like food. Tommy?
Oh, please.
Okay.
Right. The show doesn't work without engagement from the audience.
This is
Absolutely.
true.
We welcome it.
Insightful conversations there, a lot of things going on. Don't like to really say the political realm, but you know, we have a lot of things that either help us or prevent us from being on the water in the woods, and we like to dissect all that information there. There's a lot of things going on in social media that is false information or jaded. We try to cut through the BS and get the brass tacks, try to bring you factual information week in and week out. We want you to be part of that. So go to our Facebook page, give us a like, Fish Hunt NW, easy to find. Follow us there, post your pictures, ask questions, engage in this conversation. That's what we're there for. Also, Instagram, Twitter. Yeah, you know, does anybody really tweet or twat anymore? I don't know.
I do a little bit,
can
but
I say
not
that? So yes, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of that. And of course, our live show streamed every week, 6 to 8 p.m. We have that going on. And with that, this is our premiere show. Welcome to the studio.
Exciting.
We're here. Huh?
Exciting.
Yeah, pretty happy to bring this. We actually drove our first screw or pounded our first nail 4 months ago, just under 4 months ago. And again, with David's help, we got all our equipment squared away. Hopefully this is presenting well, looks good, sounds good. If you guys have insightful comments, would like to engage, go ahead and jump on here. We got a bunch of messages already hitting us here on the old text line, so I appreciate that. Keep them coming. That's how we can engage live with you during the show, and really appreciate your effort there.
Right, and I'd like to give kudos to Duane, because I know he's had this in the works for a year, maybe longer, maybe 2 years, Duane, and to finally get it to fruition where we have it here in front of us has taken a lot of work and a lot of effort from Duane. So thank you, Duane.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thanks to you guys for joining my crew.
Kelly. Yeah.
You know, it's surrounding yourself with good people.
Right.
Makes you hopefully, you know, get to a point of being successful, and that's the goal here. Is we're going to make this show very successful and continue to bring it to you each and every week. And these guys are going to help me do that. I can't do this by myself.
Right.
I tried that before; it didn't work so well. So a good team is what it takes, and you guys are, you know, handpicked.
Appreciate it.
She said, "I want those guys." So, right.
So when it all goes awry, it's on Shing.
Yeah. If we succeed, it's on Shing. If we fail, it's on her miserably. Right. Yeah. So that's how this is going to work.
Right.
So yeah, new show, and couldn't be happier. The studio is inviting. The goal is to have guests in studio as often as we can. Kyle Buschelman will be joining us later in the show. He's a guide down there in coastal Oregon area, and we're going to be delving into the Broodstock program. Again, educational component. We talk a lot about Broodstock here in Washington State, but we really want people to start wrapping your head around what it really means to Broodstock versus hatchery and what that looks like. So we'll get into that a little bit later in the show, but you know, again, our goal is simply week in and week out, bring you insightful conversation in here, kind of touch into some of that political stuff, get the facts out there. The other part of our studio, you'll see a lot of how-to stuff. And we're not just talking rigging gear like we did in Kelly, like you and I maybe have done in previous shows, but there is rigging of all different types of fishing gear. Because let's face it, we got a lot of opportunity here in Washington State. Everything's not salmon and steelhead. Newsflash, everything is not salmon and steelhead. So we will cover as much of that as we can in all facets of fishing and hunting.
Absolutely.
Really get into hunting a ton. But in the bait lab, where we're going to show you how to do stuff, we're going to be filleting out fish. We're going to show you how to cure all different types of bait. We're going to show you how to remove breast out of a duck or a pheasant, for God's sakes.
Breaking down deer and elk.
Breaking down deer and elk. Whatever we want to show you, and if you have requests or things that you'd like to see, we're more than happy to do that for you. So, and then of course our cooking segments, week in and week out. Chef Kelly and Sheri are going to bring you recipes every single week. Fish, fowl, and game always here on FHN. And the recipes are simple, but they're amazing.
Right.
And I can't wait to see what they're doing tonight. And a high percentage of that's all going to be stovetop and oven.
Yep.
Because for the majority of folks, that's how you conduct business, right? Yep. As we get into the summer months and stuff, it'd be nice to get you outside on the grill, and we'll try to accomplish that as well.
Sure.
Right, and his recipes are awesome because most of them don't require 500 ingredients.
Exactly.
Just a handful of ingredients.
Yep.
Just taking a look at the food and the protein you're putting on the plate and bringing it to you in its amazing form.
Yep. So that is the goal, and we want to teach you how to, if you're one that's kind of complacent and you prepare and cook salmon or steelhead the same every time, or you have a go-to recipe for your elk or deer, your venison, whether it's ground or your steaks or whatever, Kelly's going to blow your mind. He's going to open up things that you never even thought about. And, in practicing and testing and tasting and stuff, this stuff is amazing. So I'm pretty excited to bring you guys a full cooking segment or two. Every show is part of what we're doing here. So with that, we're going to jump into a few things that we're going to touch on. Pretty much in our opening segments, week in and week out, we'll cover relevant information around the Puget Sound region and throughout the Northwest. And for us, when we say Northwest, we are really trying to be insightful and engaged in a tri-state approach. We're talking Washington, Oregon, Idaho. One thing we got to remember is that when we are managing our fisheries in Lower Columbia, it affects what the guys and gals upper part of the Columbia get access to or don't, relative to Idaho and a lot of things going on there. Washington, Oregon, share borders, albeit the river. There's a lot of co-management things going on amongst the three states that's important for us to pay attention to. There's a lot of folks from Washington go hunt Idaho, go drop down into Oregon, coastal area hunt.
And on the big game side, wildlife doesn't know borders. So you have animals that are crossing. I mean, we talked about the wolves that have moved west from Idaho, Montana, and that area, coming into the west, into eastern Washington. So animals don't know borders. So what goes on in Idaho has a huge effect on what goes on in Washington.
Absolutely.
So
we enjoy going there. Some of their folks enjoy coming here, and there's a lot of that cross-pollination that goes on.
Get to know your neighbors.
Absolutely.
Right.
So we'll take opportunity to kind of delve into some of that stuff. So some of the things that are out there currently that are kind of up and down and in mixed signals being sent. Senate Bill 5617, the movement, as it were, down in Olympia to try and ban non-tribal gill nets. So that basically fell short. It's kind of interesting. A bunch of senators jumped on board, and then a few of them backed out of it, and it kind of started losing steam. It was interesting which direction it may go. Next thing you know, that it didn't get out of committee and will not get a hearing before Ways and Means Committee. So it's kind of like dead on the vine, right? It had a lot of push behind it, and all of a sudden it just fell short. Right. Well, that's what happens in government. And there are those, obviously, who are completely against it and say removal of non-tribal gill nets would be detrimental to managing our fisheries, and there are those that say this is a good thing in the direction we need to go. And then we don't even have to talk about what's most prevalent as of late with the a couple weeks ago, the commission opting to step back away from the gill net reform, as it were, introduce in the direction things had been going. And now we find ourselves in Washington State being pushed back to language that was recognized 2011, 2012.
Right.
Non-tribal gillnets back on the main stem, Columbia, out of the safe areas, longer seasons. If fish numbers are at a certain level, they're going to get opportunity in the main stem. You're talking, if the Springer numbers, for God's sakes, get above 110%, they're going to have an opportunity. And we're talking right on through the summer and the impacts on the wild seal. So this is just, up and down and sideways, keeps going back and forth. Whose side of the fence are you on? So I'm just letting you guys know that one is kind of in limbo. But that being said, next week, right here in studio will be Nella Pasenich, who is the Executive Director, CCA Washington, is going to join us in studio. And we're going to delve into 5617, where it's at, where it may or may not be going, and what's next.
Right.
And get an understanding from CCA perspective and other conservational groups' perspective on, are non-tribal gillnets detrimental to our fish recovery? Are they having an impact and not allowing us to get those ESA numbers back where they need to be to give us wide open fishing in some regards when we have abundance of fish, which is not something you hear all too often in a single sentence, right?
No.
When's the last time we said abundance of fish? So now the COA returns this year are looking promising, but that's a totally different topic.
Right.
So just making you aware of that. House Bill 1824, as we're speaking of things going on down there in Olympia. Just this last week, Nate Pamplin, Policy Director for WDFW, took it upon himself, did a short presentation in the House Environment and Energy Committee, and basically was talking about the Marine Mammal Protection Act of 1972, which is, he wanted to remind everybody that for movement to happen there, it has to be amended basically by the federal level, right? At NOAA. So I watched his little presentation. It was interesting. I found it very interesting. There were, persons sign in on these bills that are being talked about or in a committee meeting like that. And so seven recognized groups or supporters were there that were pro, and basically, the Northwest Sports Fishing Association, of course, Northwest Marine Trade Association, Chelan County PUD was in favor of, Washington Farm Bureau was in favor of, and of course some of our tribal co-managers, the Spokane Tribe, Puyallup Tribe, and the Humane Society. Which way do you think they went on that one, Barnum?
Oh man, I can imagine.
Yeah, so one group in opposition of intervening on removal of pinnipeds, and taking further action as we work through this process. And that
one group so far.
Yeah, the Humane Society. So they are continuing to research, relative to Puget Sound. The one thing I did read in a recent report is that they have recognized when you're talking stellar sea lions, California sea lions, harbor seals, the Puget Sound region is kind of interesting. The harbor seal is the one that's having a significant impact on outbound or out-migrating smolt, right? The numbers of those harbor sea lions are just huge. And their impact on out-migrating fish is tremendous. So when you talk about pinnipeds and their impact on salmon, most people think about the salmon consumption of the adult fish coming back down from Alaska or past Canada and getting back into Washington waters, when in fact it's twofold. You have the out-migrating fish that are being impacted, and you have the returning adults that are being impacted. So more to come on House Bill 1824. If you haven't made yourself familiar with it, look it up and see what direction it's going, see where it needs support, see if you need to contact your House representatives to get things moving ahead. That one's important. They need to start sooner than later moving forward with mitigation on the abundance of pinnipeds. So, you guys got anything you want to add to that?
Not really.
Okay. No, I think you covered it very well,
not until we dive way deeper into it in a later show.
Yeah. It'll continue to surface. There'll be more stuff on there. So, hey, we got clam digs this weekend. Right? Barnum, you're going to jump into that on your weather report as far as tides and whatnot. But March 22nd, 23, 24. Weather's going to be pretty conducive. The tides are great. We'll jump into all that during the weather report. Just making you guys aware that Twin Harbors, do you say Mo Crocs or Ma Crocs?
Mock rocks.
Yeah.
I say Mo Crocs.
Yeah, I know.
Mo clips.
Mo clips. Mo clips.
But I just
mock
refer to it
rocks.
as Mo clips, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
I only ask because people continue to pronounce them completely different ways. When you tell them there's clam opening.
There's no right or wrong way.
So we have that to look forward to, and we'll jump into those tides later in the weather report. I do want to make a mention. Here's a point. When you go to our Facebook page and interact on Fish Hunt Northwest, if you have events and things coming up, if you have certain fundraisers,
right.
kids derbies, certain community events and things going on that you want us to help you get out there via social media and let people know what's going on, hit us up on our Facebook page and let us know what you're supporting and what the movement is. And if we look at it and we're on board, we're going to get it out there. So Tillamook Anglers Annual Garage Sale. This is kind of a big event a lot of people pay attention to. Saturday, March 23rd, starting at 9 a.m. No pre-sales. Okay, which is fine. Fishing gear, salmon, steelhead, ocean, bass gear, hunting and camping gear, all different types of miscellaneous gear. No items will be priced. I found this to be interesting.
Oh.
No price on any items.
Oh, I like the sounds of that.
Simply seeking donations. Offer what you're willing to pay.
Yeah.
Give them a donation.
That's cool.
It's for a good proceed. All the monies go towards fish improvement projects in the Tillamook area. So give those guys and gals some support. They got a huge area down there. They had some pictures posted up on Facebook and tons of gear.
Wow.
Tons of gear.
Wow.
You could go in there and buy a whole table full of flashers.
Wow.
For salmon fishing.
Up.
I mean, guys and gals are donating tons of stuff. And again, there's no price on anything. So you just simply need to go give them an offer and come to an agreement and walk away with a truckload of stuff.
Wow.
Okay, and it's going to go towards good stuff, fish enhancement. So that's about all I had on the what's going on around the area. One other point I want to mention, though, let's see. I got a notice that in Idaho, NOAA finally finalized the permit for the Clearwater steelhead fishery. I found that to be interesting. They get to continue to fish steelhead on through the end of April.
Right. Oh, that's killer. Good for them.
There was, pending lawsuits, of course, by private groups trying to keep hatchery fish from being available to recreational folks. And NOAA hadn't signed off on their permit yet. They had to complete their research that's shown that those fish in the river aren't going to hamper the wild fish by any means. So good news for Idaho. If you're in that Orfino Clearwater area or Lewiston and you're going to fish that Clearwater River and also over on the Snake, you're fishing steelhead on through the end of April. So that's pretty awesome. So all right, anything you guys want to add for the start of the show?
You think about those fish, man. When did those fish enter the river?
Which fish?
Those fish that they're fishing on over in the Clearwater right now. I mean, those are summer runs.
Oh, yeah, those are summer fish.
How remarkable is that?
Yeah.
That is so crazy.
Have you ever gone and done that fishing?
No, I haven't. But just to say that I did, I'd like to.
Yeah.
That's that's got to be what, a 900-mile steelhead? River miles?
It is, I had a number in my head, 465 miles from the salt.
Is it really?
465 miles from the salt. I believe.
Well, I was way off, but still, nonetheless.
Yeah,
that's a long way.
And my buddy Johnny Albrecht will jump on here. He's over there in Lewiston.
He's commented already.
I believe 465 miles thereabouts to the confluence of the Clearwater dumps into the Snake. Now, that being said, you're right. Summer fish, typically that season opens October 15th-ish or so. And I've gone over there a handful of times. Me and some of the boys around here go over there and hang at John's. We fish that fishery. And years past, it has been and can be really good. Big dual red stripers, 18-pound dual red striped steelhead, big hatchery fish. Orfino, largest steelhead hatchery in the world, right?
Wow.
So it's an impressive operation. If you're ever over there and take opportunity to take a tour of that particular hatchery, you're going to be impressed. That place is amazing.
It's a remarkable creature, man.
The fact that they are fishing through the end of April with this nice weather. And,
there's John, 465 miles.
Hey.
Nailed it.
Wow. Elephant.
Is there an echo in here?
There might be. Okay, we are up against a break, I do believe. So we're going to jump out for a quick commercial break, believe it or not. We come back, we're actually going to be in the kitchen with Chef Kelly and Sheri for the recipe of the week. So don't go anywhere, stay tuned. We will be right back after this commercial break.
guys, welcome back to Fish Hunt Northwest. We're here in the kitchen for the recipe of the week with Chef Kelly. We have some winter run steelhead today. And you know, Chef, a lot of people think that it ends up tasting bland or kind of on the fishy side. But I bet you have something that could change their mind.
Yeah, we're going to absolutely kick it up a notch, you know, with Cashew Crusted Steelhead over some sticky rice and some mango salsa. It's going to be awesome. Big kick in the face there with the flavor.
All right, so what's next?
All right, so first we got to work on our crust. So we have a stick of butter here, unsalted, of course. Then the basic premise of this is going to be equal parts panko, so about like that, and whatever nuts you choose. I'm choosing cashews. You know, if you can find some untoasted macadamia nuts, that would be good too.
Yeah, we tried to find some untoasted ones.
Yeah, there are a lot of them.
Kind of rare to find.
Out there.
Yeah.
So we're going to chop these up by hand. I mean, you could use a food processor, but this small amount, I mean, you're going to be just wasting your time. So just go slow. And what we're really shooting for is, you know, little BB-sized cashews. We just don't want it to turn into, because, you know, the food processor, it's like one extra whirl on there, and all of a sudden you got cashew butter. Yeah, and that's not what we're going. So we're getting these all chopped up here.
All right. We just throw them in the butter and the panko, what exactly is panko for people that don't really know?
Panko is a Japanese breadcrumb that's made of dehydrated white bread.
All right.
And it has a lot more texture to it. It's just an all-around way better breadcrumb. It doesn't have as much flavor as, you know, your Italian breadcrumbs. You usually have like some herbs mixed in there. Right,
but you're adding your own, so you just want the flavors that you're going to add.
Yeah, exactly. And it has much more texture to it. I think it's definitely going to replace all breadcrumbs. I really don't see any reason why. All right, we're good right there.
All right.
Kind of small little bits here. Okay. So
Wilson will get those crumbs later.
Yeah. So we got about 2 teaspoons of ginger, chopped ginger here.
Yeah, you never want to go too heavy on ginger, right?
Yeah, ginger can be a little strong. A little bit of green onions for color.
My favorite.
And we'll go a little heavier.
Okay.
Probably 2 tablespoons. Okay, so we're gonna get this all mixed up. And you could say, you know, the same thing. You could probably bust out the mixer, but just get it all mixed up.
Right.
Doesn't seem too hard, right?
Nope.
So
keep it simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we're almost there.
All right.
You just gotta make sure your butter's soft, all ready to go.
And you have the pans all ready to go, all warmed up?
Yes,
yeah.
Pans all hot and ready to go.
Okay.
So we're not waiting on that. Okay, so remember that the cashews have a little bit of salt to them. So we're gonna now move to our fish. So our fish, we're gonna season with a little bit of kosher salt.
Kosher salt, people.
Yes. Most chefs use kosher salt. I can't think of a single high-end chef that ever uses iodized salt.
Yep.
Okay, so we got that salt, pepper.
Okay, and I see that you took the skin off of that side.
Yeah, because we're going to be crusting it. You know, to get the skin off, you're gonna have to mess with it, and it's gonna be, you know, you'll probably mess it up. So, so there we go. So we're just going to take our crust, this, good amount like that.
Wow, so you really pile it on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're gonna definitely have a crust to this. Okay. Sorry, no keto friendly for you there.
Yeah, but, thanks a lot.
But it's gonna be great.
I thought with the steelhead I was good to go with it, but nope. Right, no panko.
Okay, so now we have our pan. It's already preheated. It has butter in it already. Why do I need to add some more oil to it? But it does need a little bit of oil. I have a lot of experience with this crust, so.
All right.
All right, so we're gonna...
To get the little crispiness on it.
Yeah.
To have them.
Okay, so this is one of those, you're gonna put it in there and you're going to let it sit for a minute.
Okay.
And you're gonna flip it over one time. This isn't gonna be, okay, I can just flip it back and forth. This is not one of those kind of crusts.
Probably have to check it a little bit if you're, wanting to make sure that it doesn't get too brown. Or
Yeah, you're just gonna take a little peek, peek. And we're getting good. We're not getting too much color right now. Probably turn up the heat just a hair more. Let that run just like that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to throw this into the oven after we flip it. And we're going to probably cook it for about 4 to 5 minutes. We're going to check it from there. What we're feeling for, see, you can feel that there's like nothing there, right? We're looking for some spring back.
Okay.
To it, so you can definitely cook this like a steak.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Got a decent color on there. I'm going to throw this in the oven.
All right.
All right.
Woo.
Okay. So now let's work on our mango salsa.
All right. Okay, before we start on that, Chef Kelly, let's throw it back to the guys in the studio for this week's regional weather report.
Go.
Well, that was interesting.
Right.
To say the least.
What is it? Cashew Crusted Steelhead.
Wow.
Right?
Who even thought of putting cashews on steelhead?
Chef Kelly.
Sounds nuts.
What?
See what I did there?
That was.
See what I did there?
Zinger for
I'll be here all week.
Yeah,
Tommy
I'll
won,
be here
the rest
all
of
week.
us
Yeah, Cashew Crusted Steelhead. So I cannot wait to delve into that after the show for sure. Gosh, you know what? Credit to my wife. She has no in front of camera time, right? So this is gonna take a little bit of time to get comfortable and get going on, but she'll find her way.
Yeah.
She's doing great. We got some opportunity this weekend.
Tons.
Right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things going on. If you're going to sit home and hide under a rock, that's your choice. But with the weather,
We got to talk about the weather.
we got to talk about the weather. So we're going to give you
We're
our
coming off a beautiful week. I mean, we're talking record 80 degrees.
Record setting week.
Right.
record setting.
Dude,
Right.
yeah, it was in the 80s coming through Olympia yesterday.
Ridiculous.
Wow.
Brush fires are already starting.
Right.
Makes my
But unfortunately, it's changing.
yeah.
And I'm going to go to the weather report and tell you about
All right,
it.
let's get to that tri-state regional weather report, Barnum. What do you got for us?
I got you.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm just going to start with kind of the coastal, what we have coming up, as we have some onshore flow starting, and we're going to have some showers coming in tonight and into tomorrow, and probably even a little bit on Saturday, about a 40% chance of showers on Saturday, so some rain coming to the area for sure. And we have the clam dig coming up, so that's going to affect your clam dig a little bit.
Sure.
You're probably going to want to take a raincoat with you, but I don't think it's going to blow it out. It's not going to be horrible. So diving into that clam dig, let's talk about Friday, Saturday, and Sunday's tides. Tomorrow's tides, it's a -2/10 at 8:29 in the morning. That is a morning dig tomorrow.
Yeah.
Through the weekend.
Oh, nice.
Cut the
No
necks
headlamps,
off your
right?
clams and go fish surf perch on the incoming. Last 3 hours of the incoming.
Right.
That's the plus to them
There you
morning
go.
tides.
Wow.
Yeah,
Get your limit and then go get some.
There you go.
Awesome.
Yeah, do
Good
it.
idea.
You're there anyway.
Great point.
On Saturday at 9:16 a.m., it's going to be a -4/10. And then Sunday at 10:03, we're going to have a -3/10. So most of the time you want to get to the beach about 2 hours before low water. Normally clams will be pretty close to showing by then, and you can dig all the way up to tide change and even a little bit after the tide changes. I've seen it when you get done with that ebb and you start to get the flood, that the clams will actually just all of a sudden appear everywhere on that slack tide on the change.
I just like morning tides so you don't have to go out there at night, headlamp, the whole deal,
Right. It's a lot funner for the kids.
Get the kids out there.
Right.
Have a good time.
Right.
Perfect.
So we also have bottom fishing going on.
We do.
And of course, we have some weather coming in. Things are going to be changing a little bit, and it's not going to be pretty on the ocean this weekend.
Okay. You looking at Westport or Nia Bay? Or
I am looking at 15 nautical miles from Westport.
Okay.
So from shore out 15 nautical miles. A lot of the bottom fishing areas. Some of the charter boats go out way farther than that, but it's probably not going to matter this weekend. We have a weak front that's going to come in on Friday. well through Friday night, and it's going to keep that swell around. So let's just look at Saturday. Saturday, you're looking at a light wind waves 1 foot or less, but that swell is going to be hanging around at 13 feet at 16 seconds. So it's going to be a pretty large swell.
That doesn't sound fun.
No, Sunday we're going to have light wind becoming east 5 to 15 knots with wind waves 2 feet or less, with the swell subsiding to 10 feet and even dropping down to 8 foot. So as we go into next week, we're going to see that swell decrease as we go into a little more showery weather, and fishing's going to become a lot more obtainable in the ocean at that time.
Just got to get through the weekend.
Yeah, this weekend's going to be ugly. I'd say probably you might want to avoid the ocean.
Dig your clams, do a little surf perch, find something else to do.
You may be able to hit the jetty if you watch it. I mean, at times, but keep an eye on it. Don't risk anything.
Yeah, don't do anything silly.
As we're talking about the steelhead opener on the Clearwater and them being able to fish through April, we figured we might as well take a look at the river forecast.
Yeah, what we got going on over there.
Right. So we do have rain coming in for the entire region. What you're looking at right here, I believe, is Saturday. I mean, not a huge amount of rain coming in Saturday. You're looking at like
quarter to half inch.
Quarter to a half inch. Nothing major.
Up in the mountains.
Nothing major at all. So, I mean, we're not talking about a big river change, but here's Satsop on the west coast, over here kind of in the Grace Harbor area, and you can see as you go into the 23rd, 24th, we're going to get a spike up in the flow. Not necessarily a bad thing. Rivers have been low, super clear. Things have been really dry.
We're going to talk about that later in our bait lab presentation.
Right.
How to close out this final week. We got about 10 days left before our rivers around here close. Of course, you go out to the coast, you have extended into April. But, that little bump for me is nice to finish out the season. Right. You see it's tapering off there, but I like it. I like a little bump.
It looks really good. And as we jump across the mountains and get over into Idaho and look at the Clearwater, you're going to see river levels here are going to actually start to climb pretty good this weekend and continue to break through the average mean, which is indicated here by your diamonds across the top. And, we're going to kind of chalk this up, not too heavy rain, but spring is here. It's spring melt.
Right.
It's going to be, the snow is going to start to go away, and it's time for things to warm up on the east side of the state and in Idaho and eastern Oregon, and we're going to see river flows start to come up with that. But, it could create a little bit of color in the river and make things a little bit
I've
fishable.
seen that river at 50,000.
Right.
Fishing springers, that's from snow melt. And some rain, but, excuse me. But yeah, that there is still opportunity to go get some fish.
Right. So, all in all, the weekend doesn't look that bad. The ocean's going to be blown out. Clam digging should be great. The tides are great. Should be a good time. Weather shouldn't be too horrible. The steelhead fishing should be not bad at all. River conditions are going to be great. So lots of stuff for you to get out and do this weekend.
Absolutely. Take advantage of it. Get out there and, go find something to do. And once the rivers close, then we got to kind of sit around and wait for a few other things to pop here and there. And, we'll have turkey hunting coming up. We'll have trout openers coming up here as we get into April. Got to wait a few months for our summer steelhead. So there will be things to do. And definitely this weekend there are some things to do. So you just need to get out there and go take advantage of it. Okay, with that, we are going to jump out for another commercial break. Take a few minutes. And when we come back, first in-studio guest is going to join us, right? Kyle Buschelman is up here from Oregon, and we're going to delve into the Siletz River Broodstock program, that Steelhead Broodstock program, and we're going to really kind of dig into that and see what it's all about. So don't go anywhere. A few minutes for a commercial break. We'll be right back here on FHN.
What if there was a smarter way to search for your new home? Introducing the Better Homes and Gardens real estate website and mobile app. This revolutionary new search tool puts your needs first. Narrow your search to what matters most to your family, like school data, school districts, and even walk scores. Get easy access to your local affiliated agent, as well as unique and local insights about neighborhoods and properties directly within the app. With synced and saved preferences, you'll always pick up wherever you left off. Get your smarter search started today with Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate.
WHN, and we are fortunate enough to have our first in-studio guest, my good buddy, Kyle Buschelman, Willamette Valley Outfitters. How you doing, buddy?
Good, man. I love being here.
I'm glad you drove up.
Yeah, it's nice.
Huh?
I like Washington.
What do you think?
It's awesome. It's well put together.
I'm
stoked.
You are the coveted first guest in studio.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I can hold that when it's...
Well, Jordan and I came down a couple weeks ago to fish, as we fish pretty much every year. You invite me down to come down on the Siletz, and spent a couple days chasing steelhead, which those fish are there because of the efforts on your Broodstock program. And
correct.
It was a little tough. I mean,
it was
22 degrees, warmed up to a balmy 30 degrees by noon. I was sick with the flu, and fighting a fever and being at 22 degrees is no way to enjoy fishing.
It was a definitely tough day, and the problem with that is, we had a lot of snow in the valley.
Yeah.
But we didn't get it over there, so that river was dropping, and everything else was kind of getting ready for a flood, and we needed some fresh water, but we gave her our best. So
we wanted to get. Part of it was for you and I as buddies just to fish together.
Yeah.
Wanted to expose the beard to the Siletz. I mean, last year I came down, dumped rain on us for 2 days straight. We hooked like 18 fish. It was, excuse me, absolutely lights out. But this year not so much. That's steelhead fishing, right? It's been kind of a downturn for a lot of guys this year. I mean, we've had to work hard for our fish around here. You guys started out pretty good and then tapered off, right?
Well, we had a peak, and it's just been the last week or so of the fishing. 2 weeks of fishing's got just tougher. And part of that is we just haven't had a good flood in a while. On that particular river, now you go down in the Umpqua, it's flooding because of all the snow melt now, but it was fishing really well, but can't be at every place at one time. So
well, so part of the success on that river is the Broodstock program.
Correct.
How many years they've been broodstocking?
Close to 10 years, and I've been involved with it for the last 5 or 6. Where we started off with the little round tubes on the side of the boat, to where now we have live wells in, and I'm one of a bunch of guides that do it on that river. Most of us full-time guides on that river, and even some part-time guides have access to the tanks that ODFW put together, and we're all contributing in one way or the other, some more than others. And we have 3 guides there in Oregon, Scott Ammerman, Grant Sheely, and Michael Kelly, who put a lot of effort into this, what we're going to talk about, this fundraiser we did for the Siletz River.
So they're providing you guys with onboard aerated tanks.
Correct.
And as we talk through this process here, David will put up some slides that kind of depict and show what we have going on there. But it's amazing to see how this program has evolved.
Right.
It started with the tubes on if you never rode a boat with a tube dragging in the water, just one side of the boat, it's not real forgiving when you get into an angle and position of your boat, and that water grabs that like an extra anchor or arm.
That too, and it changed. So we were working doing this. We have clients in the boat, and we had to, once we committed to a fish, we had to commit to the drop point for that fish.
Right.
So it really changes the day. So we had to have our clients on board with the management policy with us.
So, and drop point, you mean by the cages, basically, submerged cages.
On the Siletz, you saw that we have those cages in 2 spots. And we used to have these little poles at each boat ramp that we'd tie the
fish to.
The fish to and the little tubes. And, it worked okay, but it definitely was not near as efficient and safe as what we're doing now.
Yeah, so the onboard tanks with the aerators, as we're looking at now, I mean, night and day game changer. Yep. And you and I talked to a couple of the hatchery folks and got some really good intel. And also we have a video here we'll show in a little bit that's produced by ODF&W. Now, that particular program that they're talking about there is on the Wilson and the Trask facility, right? Yep. Unfortunately, with lack of fish, the cold temperatures, and the illness, we didn't capture the video and stuff that we wanted to produce, and bring that content. But I still wanted to have this conversation with you in studio because I think it's important. Here in Washington, you hear the word or terminology Broodstock, and some folks are on board with it. Other guys, Kelly, as you know, they're like, that's just a hatchery program. Right. And it's truly not, right? It is the future of bringing some of our fish runs back, and it is the direction a lot of fish managers need to start directing their basins to bring fish numbers back.
These are fish that are from that basin, and so they're strong, and I mean it's a stronger, better fish in many cases, and it's and we're not. there's not a lot of wasted energy on that river too, and there's just something also to be contributing back to the river.
Right.
I mean, a lot of these are guide or volunteer-based fish that are put in the program, and, and if we needed extra, they can get them in a trap, or we have a spot upriver near what we call the falls that they can get them at. But you know, most right now we're ahead of schedule right now. I mean, we get an email letting us know we need how many hens or males, and we're all pretty engaged with the program, and we have really good people there now at the LC Hatchery that are staying on it.
And so are you guys looking for a certain quality of fish that you're pulling for the broodstock?
So what we want is currently we're doing like 32 breeding pairs for the season. And we're starting that in January or so, and we're running that even into May is what we were told. And we're spreading it out through the season, so we have returning keepers through the season.
Yeah.
We want these fish to be healthy, nice, upriver fish.
Okay.
Obviously, genetically, we want them to be bigger and everything else. And so we try to not just put every little fish in, oh, this bright fish. I mean, we try to make sure it's a good fish. But
we want diversity in genetics.
Yep.
You don't want all fish coming back at one time.
Correct.
Right. You're trying to mix them up. Now, some of the historical broodstock programs that have been ran by co-managers in Washington State here, i.e. like on the Puyallup and stuff, several years ago I had conversations with folks in charge of those, Puyallup system and whatnot. They are very specific in that, and we'll check out this video here in a little bit because they're tagging fish, and I was interested in what that's all about. But in this particular program, they're tagging fish that if by chance, by the miracle of God, that fish made it back the following year, and they captured that in their program, they would not spawn that fish.
Correct.
Because they don't want the genetic line being a telephone pole. They want it branched out and being diverse, right? So, and it makes sense because you're talking a handful of fish. Now, on the Siletz, the folks we were talking to said 32 pair, roughly 70 fish, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Correct.
So that's not a real huge number in trying to spread out that diversity, but apparently it's enough. They're trying to accumulate upwards of 100,000 eggs with the goal of releasing 50,000 smolt.
Correct, yeah.
In comparison, we jump over to the Wilson, that Trask program, and we'll see here on the video, they accumulate upwards of 130 to 140 fish, 70 pair-ish, right?
Yep.
And they're trying to acquire 200,000 eggs, 180 to 200,000, and they're going to release 150,000 smolt. So quite a bit bigger release goal in the comparison. But let me ask you this. If they've been doing this program for the last 10 years versus previously just doing, random seeding of hatchery fish, as it was, have you seen an improvement in the fishery?
I have. Now, we had some accountability a while back with some die-offs, and that was related to a lot of infrastructure. Okay. A lot of our hatcheries, as you know, up in Washington, are aging.
Yeah.
Yep. And so, but there was no accountability with it.
Right.
The start of our Siletz Angler Association, some guides that are very engaged, guys that do work a lot harder than I do on it, that got it done. We got some people in that LC hatchery that really are working hard to make a good product, and we're seeing a better return. I can tell you that much. Right now, I'm seeing a 60-40 on our hatchery so clients who want to have a fish. It's a really nice thing when you get, are we going to have keepers today? Yes, we are. And they're good fish too. I mean, these are strong fighting.
Well, last year I was down there late to mid-March.
Good size fish
and
too.
We caught pretty much all hatchery fish.
Yeah.
We caught all fish that you could retain.
Yeah, we actually limited out. We had 6 fish that day.
We did.
Wow. And that was a good day.
You'd be hard-pressed to find a river here in Washington. You're finding 6 hatchery fish you could pull and retain.
And it's the Oregon coast, too. We're doing this on a lot of rivers. Some are ahead of the game. They've been doing it longer. And some are catching up and learning and making it better. I mean, we're doing it on the South Umpqua as well.
Yeah.
So, it's important.
Let's talk about your Siletz River Guide Association that you guys have created, how that came about, how many players are involved, and then let's kind of jump into that derby you held on March 10th.
Sure.
What it was all about, what it generated, and where that's going.
So it's just there's a handful of us guides on there, and that live off the river. We love the river so much, and we have 3 really good guides I mentioned before. Mike Kelly, Scott Ammerman, and Grant Shibby put together this. They kind of brainchild this association mainly to have a voice, so that we had some some organization to be able to maybe help lobby a little bit and have work with ODF&W, and it's been a pretty good deal. So we have a fundraiser that they put on, and it was a fishing derby. We had 22 guides attend.
Wow.
And then we had there was a barbecue after the day and a fundraiser, and they raised $20,000 in one day.
$20,000 in one day.
Yeah,
oh, man, wow.
And even people who did not go were able to go and donate to the river they love. And this is what makes that community. I mean, if you've been on the river, us guides all get along.
Right.
We do a pretty. It's a special place to be. I got to be honest.
Right.
It's a
working
special
towards
river.
A common goal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a beautiful river.
Yeah, and it's a year-round fishery. That's the other thing. We have summer steelhead, winter steelhead. We have. I'm not going to say it. We have fall Chinook.
What?
I love this river. No.
Yeah.
Bass. No, I'm kidding. No, but it's a good place, and we've had some guys that have spent their whole careers there.
Right.
And I'm one of them, and we all do the best we can contributing-wise.
Yeah.
So like I said, some guys really have put a lot of effort as of late, and it shows. And we're lucky. I'm lucky to be a part of that group. You know.
So, understanding historically the hatchery programs of the past, you take fish, they return to hatcheries, they're reared in hatcheries, they spawn in hatcheries, they grow those smolt in concrete pens, and they release those fish. And I mean, it's just standard hatchery program, rinse, repeat, wash, rinse, repeat, and basically you take a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, and over time, they talk about fitness level and the lack of, survivability of hatchery fish and all that. That all goes away with the broodstock because you're taking native fish from that basin.
Right.
And you're grabbing those genetics. If we can truly say we have any native fish left. Barnum, you and I have talked about this. Tommy, you and I have talked about it a little bit.
Yeah.
I more oftentimes not refer to things now as natural spawn.
Right. I know we have native trout in the Middle Fork of the Salmon called West Slope Cutthroat.
Oh, well, there you go.
But we have wild. The terminology is important. It means a lot. Wild. In many cases, wild to me is gravel to gravel. It doesn't mean that, because everything that's either Columbia Basin, coastal basin has been tampered with.
Yes, for sure.
And so
historically, I mean, we're talking how many years of mitigating these fish, and how many years ago they started building hatcheries to supplement the commercial harvest, and historically how this all came to be, right? So once they polluted everything with same gene pool, so to speak, things got a little wonky, and fish survivability, and we know there are so many things impacting our ability for fish to survive. But when it comes to the end of the day, what now science has shown, what is being proven, is that in-basin broodstocking, taking what is deemed as a native or natural fish out of that basin and brooding that and generating the next generation of fish is having a positive effect, right?
Right.
So to understand what's involved with that, kind of look at some of the things that go on with that. ODF&W has produced a video, and we're going to jump into that real quick and watch about 3.5-minute video. Again, this is on the Wilson Trask program.
This is just good to show you that, because what's going on here with these videos is that a lot of us guides are there's a lot of work that goes involved in taking care of a fish that day. Even we don't like to do more than one fish in our tank. We can do two sometimes, no more than that. We can't keep those in that tank too long. Even though with the aerator, we want those fish taken care of, and our survivability rate right now in the Siletz is unprecedented. I'm very proud of it. So
you should be, man. That's good stewardship on your guys' behalf.
I've only done this much of it, and a lot of guys have contributed a lot of fish, and just the daily work with ODF coming down every day to check the tanks. We send an email saying we dropped one in, and they, it's been a really good communication loop for everything.
So that versus hatchery program. Let's take a look at that video, and so we'll take a look at that, and then we'll come back and we'll continue to discuss this just a little bit more.
So this morning we're at what we call the Huey Creek Acclimation Pond. It's a site here on the Lower Wilson where anglers drop off wild steelhead for our wild broodstock program for the Wilson River. We're picking those fish up this morning and hauling them over to Trask Hatchery to where they'll be held until they're ready to spawn. In a typical week, we come out here 3 days a week. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we're picking those fish up and hauling them over to the hatchery. So any given fish is usually only in here at most about 2 days. If they come in over the weekend, maybe closer to 3 days. But the purpose of this program is ultimately to provide hatchery fish for people to catch. But the reason we use the wild fish is it's an in-basin stock taken from the Wilson River, as opposed to our older hatchery stocks that we used to have that were of Alsea River origin, or in some cases, some programs outside of the basin that they were being released in. They're locally adapted to the environment of the this river, or at least the Tillamook Bay system, and so they're a little bit better apt to survive under any of the conditions that would normally occur here. So the long-term hatchery stocks were also what we call domesticated, so they've been essentially only returning hatchery fish been bred with each other over years and years and years. In these programs, we typically use all wild fish each year, so it's a brand new generation of parents, and any potential genetic differences are minimized that way.
So when we receive these fish, we're putting them in anesthetic. We're going to take scale samples off of them for age composition. They're going to get a numbered tag, and we're going to give them an injection with an antibiotic and place them in one of the tanks here, hold them until they're ripe enough to spawn. These fish will be live spawn and released back to the Wilson River.
Well, we need to spawn about 60 pairs, so we're typically collecting 130 to 140 adults for this program. Because not all of them will spawn, and or at least not in time, in a reasonable amount of time. And we do get a few mortalities, not very many, but anyway, we collect a little bit extra, but we end up spawning, depending on the fecundity, the number of eggs per female in a given year, about 55 to 60 pairs. This program, the release is now 150,000 smolts, so we're shooting for 180 to 200,000 eggs. So it really depends on the year, but we're shooting in that 130, 140 range. It's kind of the goal.
Well, there you go. That's a great example of some of the efforts going on within the Oregon systems, and them, continuing to work towards this broodstock program. I mean, you saw the scale samples for aging of the fish, right? The tagging, and of course, then they're somewhat sedating them to get them through that process. I like the fact they give them a shot of antibiotic because they, know historically in holding adult fish in a tank, the chances of bacteria and stuff taking off and these fish beginning to get sores and things like that.
One thing we're not doing with these fish is we're using fish safe nets, and we're not using towels to grab them.
Good point.
To rub off. I mean, we're talking, it's a big thing. A lot of us are using those cradle nets to get them into the tank and then out so that we're not beating them up.
Well, like you said, survivability is paramount.
It's huge.
And you're not just trying to get the eggs and the sperm out of these fish. You're working through the process to release them live so they swim off strong, and if they're able to make it back again, great. But they have a right to continue doing what they're doing. So a lot of effort and handling and care, like you said. This just isn't your old standby, hey, let's bonk them and and get the eggs and milt out of them and spawn them and toss them on the truck and take them, go dump them in a garden somewhere.
The effort of putting one in the box takes a few minutes because we're, it's in the net. We want to make sure that the water and the pump's going good, and then we get it over there. Then we have to have a safe transmit in there. And so my net is shallow basin and nice, and I could lay it in there and it just goes in nice. And I want it where my aerator goes lengthways. I want my nose, that fish laying into it. So and everybody's putting a lot of effort into that.
I'm glad you brought that up about the towel around the tail thing, man. You see those fish on the reds that have had that towel around their tail and they're white from the adipose back.
It's even non-fish nets that'll ruin them if they're in there rolling around spinning in the net. I always say in steelhead season, you have to have a steelhead net, and then you go to salmon, then you have your kill net for salmon season. And in steelhead, we like a shallow net because that can come in the boat if it's a keeper or stay in the water. We do want to keep them safe.
You wipe
That's
that
our future.
protective, you wipe that protective slime off of them with a rag or a gloved hand or something. Chances are they're going to get some type of infection or sore or whatever on that.
Sure.
So good information. I like the comparison of what's going on both the Siletz and the Trask Wilson combination. I think there's a lot of good things coming out of Oregon. I know, and I got Kelly and I, and Tommy, we got friends that work within WDFW, and there's different programs being introduced. We're talking about hopefully getting a broodstock program here down the street on our Siletz River, right?
That'd be great.
So it'd be awesome if they can bump those numbers back up by 50,000 in a broodstock program.
Right.
Genetically, some of those wild fish in these streams right out here on this intercoastal area here at Grace Harbor, just some fantastic opportunity that they need to take advantage of and start rearing fish out of those genetics.
We're doing a bite study on the LC River too. I don't know if you heard about the bite study we're doing, and we're gauging biters, meaning if we're catching biting fish,
you're breeding
are we breeding biting fish?
Yeah.
So what's that going to do? That's going to take the strain off the wild run.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. And these are still wild generated fish.
Right.
And we've been doing this for a number of years right now, and it takes a lot of volunteer base. So our fish are marked with I think that's a right max cut.
Right.
That lets us know that fish is in the bite study. And then we're going to wait. This is the last year for that. So from here on out, Oregon hatchery fish won't have the max cut. But that's...
Now, see, that study interests me because historically, when we're fishing and we have this conversation in the boat with other dudes or whatever, and you're like, well, yeah, but I've watched this fishery. The fish are here. They keep getting the numbers to the hatchery, but man, they're getting harder to catch. Well, because we keep catching all the biters.
That's right.
This is the first time I've ever heard anybody introduce a study that is to say, let's catch them. And then
breed them.
Yeah,
you stole the words right out of my mouth.
Biting fish.
So we're doing good stuff down there.
That's a big deal. The biggest thing I like about that is if you're breeding biting fish, as you said, you're taking pressure off those wild fish.
After the show, we'll get contact information. Randall Bonner just did. Randy Bonner from our area, he's a writer as well, and he just did a big thing on social media, post thing about the end of it and what's the contributing factors are. It's been good.
I've been saying this lately, that's what we're learning about genetics, what we've learned in the last 10 years and about human genetics and animal genetics is going to revolutionize everything. And as long as these agencies, Washington Fish and Wildlife, Oregon Fish and Wildlife, Idaho, step in and start to use that science to better address things, like we're going to see fisheries change drastically over the next 10 to 12 years because of the genetic science that we have now.
Absolutely. Advancements in where they're taking this stuff.
Very good point.
Fantastic information, Kyle. We are going to jump out for a commercial break. But before we do...
What do you got there?
Cookies?
Cookies? Yeah, John.
I was busy all day
in the house.
And I took time to
in the house.
John, there you go, John.
Of course I have a cookie. Why would I have a cookie?
Okay, with that, we're going to jump out for a commercial break. We come back.
With
We're
the
going to
whole
move
plate. That's so mean.
into the bait lab. We're gonna have a little discussion on bobber dogging, float angles versus vertical jig presentation. We're coming down to the final week and a half or so on some of our rivers. A few other ones will extend into April. You still have opportunity to go get some wild fish. And we can chase them with artificials and whatnot. Jigs, bobber dogging, beads, even swinging by chance, but we're not going to cover that today.
Wow!
Yeah. So we will delve into a little bit of float techniques to finalize your steelhead season. We come back right here on FHM.
break of night, the pink skies waving goodbye. She come out to break of night, leaving no traces around. She's trying to free a reckless heart. She's trying to be as light as a breeze. The queen of art, Friday morning. The queen of art, Friday morning. Come out to break the night, you'll be wearing her charm so frail. Yeah, she's trying to avoid everyone. Even the battle for peace. Queen of Ireland, Friday morning. Queen of Ireland, Friday morning.
Hey guys, welcome back to FHN. So we're here in the bait lab, and today we're just going to briefly talk about float presentation as we're counting down the final week or two here for steelhead and our low clear conditions that we're facing right now. Now we do, if you remember back earlier in the show, Kelly's weather report, have a little bump of rain coming. It may change the color of the river a little bit, but not a whole lot. And before we get done with our season, especially out on the coast, we're going to be back down to low clear conditions. So just a few pointers to think about as you work your way through the season. Now, when fishing a jig vertically, at this time of year, you know, I scale down to about a ½ ounce float. Just going to run a single inline torpedo style float here with a bobber stop up the line. Now I can run this float when I'm fishing jigs, either vertical or set, or I can have it as a slip float. And I just do that by adjusting my bobber stop there, okay? If I want to allow that to travel and slide, I can do that. If I want to fix that float, one thing I always do right above my sinker, my inline sinker, I put a secondary bobber stop, and thereby I can simply slide that up, and when that butts up against my float, now that float is basically pinned between two bobber stops, and that is actually going to fish as a fixed float. If I have an idea of the depth of water that I'm fishing and want to make sure that the depth stays consistent, I will fix that float or pin that float. If I want to have a variance in my depth and able to adjust it, I may bump that up a little bit, slide that all the way down. Now I have a float that travels, okay? So now this float will travel up and down my top shot on my main line, and it gives me opportunity for adjustment. So simply just an inline sinker, little quarter ounce weight. I'm fishing a 1/8 ounce jig head, all right? And again, with the clarity and the conditions we have right now, I'm actually going to go to some of my summer patterns or summer colors that I may choose. This one here is I call it the dead red. It's the Jinglin Jig dead red sequence. It has some black and a little bit of purple chenille in there, but that red-black rabbit fur in there does a real nice job in the clear water. One thing that's become very successful is that fishing a jig by itself can get the job done. But sometimes you want to have that secondary means on there, that secondary attractor. So quite some years ago, started fishing a dropper bead, 12 to 14 inches under the jig, okay? So I'm going to hold this out front here. In that dropper bead is, you can fish that as an 8 or a 10 mil as we get in this clear water. And believe it or not, historically, when I would keep track of numbers of hookups and landings on steelhead in the wintertime, when I started fishing a dropper bead off a jig, 85% of my fish that were caught and landed successfully were on the dropper bead versus the jig. And I'm not sure if, you know, the jig draws some attention as an attractor, and then they see that bead and they go for it. But you'll notice color comparison. I mean, this is nice contrast. First of all, steelhead love contrast. And, you know, the black and red is the go-to in clear water. Summer patterns, as I mentioned, for sure, but these clear conditions in the wintertime, it'll actually work pretty well. And then as far as the bead selection, you know, this time of year, I really like in the clear conditions to go with something that is a peach or almost a dead egg look to it. Almost a bleached out egg at times can actually produce very well. But something in a peach or a light in color looks natural. You know, the size of the egg looks very natural as well, which fish respond to. So something to think about if you're fishing a solo jig. Now, one thing to consider is that the fly guys have been doing it for years. You know, they will run a double rig on a lot of their presentations, and it's become very successful for them. So when they're running a double rig and having success, why wouldn't you double your chances in doing so simply by putting that dropper bead on your jig in about 12 to 14 inches beneath that? So one option to try. Again, it's you know, lower clear conditions. We don't want to be throwing large ammunition at these critters. They might have been beat on a little bit pushed off, and so a smaller presentation, clear water might get it done for you. So single jig in presentation, or double your chances, put that dropper bead. It's nothing new, it's not new news, just revisiting it again to think if maybe you've struggled a little bit this season and you're getting towards the end of your year, you've only caught 1 or 2 fish and can't seem to entice them, you know, put 2 presentations in front of them instead of 1. We can do the same thing as we're bobber dogging. You know, bobber dogging has become quite a popular go-to for a lot of guys. I've been bobber dogging actually since about 2004, 2005. So up here in Washington, it's been around for quite some time. Guys in Oregon have picked it up the last few years and really started getting after it. So for me, typical bobber dog setup, I'm running braided line on all my rods, of course, because we're float fishing basically, but every one of my float presentations will have a top shot of monofilament on there. And as we're going after these big boys and girls latter part of the season, those wild fish out on the coast, this top shot I may utilize like a 20-pound test. Nothing wrong with that. Fish can't really see it because it's not in their face. My float is going to slide up and down this top shot. Bobber dogging, we're setting that stopper up about 8 feet, 6 to 8 feet, depending on the water depth. And that is going to be ideal to allow for travel to ensure that your weight gets to the bottom in most of the areas that you're fishing, okay? Let's talk about float orientation. We'll say that this is actually my jig float here, and I'm fishing vertical. So when I'm fishing a jig properly and it's suspended and it's not dragging on bottom or catching on anything, my float orientation needs to be obviously straight up and down. If the float is leaning back towards me as it goes down river, one of 2 things are happening. One, I'm not paying the line out fast enough to allow it to flow freely with the speed of current naturally. So that's an issue. It's also an issue if I'm holding back, causing the float to lean back towards me. If I have my float fixed as a slip float, or if it's rigged as a slip float, one thing that can actually happen is as you are holding back and that float is pointing back towards you, you can actually be pulling your presentation back up. Now I'm talking about the jig that I was showing earlier and failed to mention this. You're actually holding that back, and as that float travels, it raises your presentation out of the strike zone that you're intending to hit, okay? So if your float's pointing back towards you and you're free drifting your float down in a vertical presentation, your presentation is incorrect. If your float is pointing down river, in the direction of travel. In this orientation, while we're bobber dogging, and the weight's on the bottom, that's going to be absolutely correct. My intention is to drag weight, slow that presentation down ever so slightly, and give them an opportunity to kind of come over and check out what is going on. But if I am not bobber dogging, if I'm fishing a vertical jig and my float is pointing downriver, that tells you, in fact, something is dragging, although you don't, purposely want it to do that. So, oftentimes, if you're fishing that jig with a dropper bead, and your float is pointing down rivers, because that dropper bead is catching into things, because again, it's extended off your jig another 12 or 14 inches. It may be neutral buoyant. Some of the soft plastic beads are actually pretty neutral buoyant or somewhat buoyant, and they'll whip around and move. But at times, if you're fishing a harder plastic bead that is neutral buoyant or not so buoyant, with the hook, it may not be floating the hook up, could be dragging, going along the bottom. You're going to know that because your float would be pointing downriver. So vertical presentation, we want that float straight up and down the whole time, presenting natural, matching current speed. You're doing it correct, whether you're fishing a dropper or not. Bobber dogging, okay, we want that float pointing downriver. We want that weight dragging. We want your stopper set up about 8 feet so that there's plenty of line travel getting through. And your stick lead, and I am a strong advocate for stick leads. I think it's one of the slickest things going in the realm of bobber dogging. There are many different types of weights you can use. Some guys use drop shot little spinning weights. Some guys use slinky. Some guys still old school piece of lead. Whatever it is you like to use, that's fine. For me, it is a stick lead because of the consistency and presentation, matching current speed, and the lack of hangups that we find even in some of the rockiest conditions out on the coast that you're going to fish. Float is pointing downriver, weight is dragging. Now, for years, we would utilize a single presentation on that. Again, this is drift fishing with a float, okay? If I remove the float out of here and I'm casting out in the river and letting that thing drag along the bottom in the current, you're basically drift fishing. Now we've added a float. And we add a float because in the new bobber dog style floats that we have access to nowadays are great. They basically have cut floats off. The water cups behind it. It pushes the float along on the surface current speed. The lead drags a little bit on the bottom structure. You get a combination of things working together that finds the travel lane that the fish like to follow, simply because of the water hydraulics and the way this works in unison. Float on top, lead dragging on bottom, navigates its way through the travel lane. As that drags, you typically are fishing a somewhat of a buoyant lure. Again, it's like drift fishing, right? So we have options, things that we can use nowadays. A lot of guys, and myself included, and a number of guys I fish with, we've gone to soft beads. Okay, this is 12s or 14s might be a little big depending on water clarity now. You may want to get this down to an 8 or 10. Which is going to do a real nice job. Again, some things to think about. Water clarity this time of year, dead egg or bleached egg, really peachy if you can. This faded kind of pink dead egg look to it, I really like in clear water. It's been very productive. And for some reason, reds also seem to work well as the water gets clear. Now, I can fish that as a single presentation, bobber dogging, dragging down that down river and letting it go. I can also double up on this presentation much like I did on the jig with the dropper bead, okay? And I can do that simply by tying an additional leader to my inline hook. And now I could fish a second bead, different size, different color. That's an option. Earlier in the season, when we're primarily chasing hatchery fish, I can fish a little bit of bait where it's acceptable. Little clump of eggs, a little piece of shrimp, a little piece of sand shrimp, and thereby you have a double approach, offering two different offerings. Maybe they're going after the bead, maybe they're going to go after the rag, maybe they're going to go after the bait that I'm presenting. In this case, because we're, say, fishing out towards the coast, going after wild steelhead, I have found a lot of success in something as simple as an inline bead, okay, rigged as you normally would up above the hook, and then my trailer is going to be a soft plastic, soft plastic worm. You can go with a 4-inch worm, 5-inch. You can cut them down. I always like to pin that up against a corky or a cheater or something to give it a little more buoyancy. This is a nightmare pattern, which in the clear water seems to produce quite well. I've caught a number of steelhead over the years on everything from emerald green, steely green, whatever you want to call it, right on down to gin clear. So as the water clarity gets even more so clear. You know, we have our options. We can go with the reds and the blacks. We can go with kind of these peach off-color pinks. We can go with these purples with that chartreuse paddle tail. The one thing that all of these worms are showing you is a little bit of contrast. Couple that with some type of a corky. This one just happens to be kind of a black and silver with that black head. I could remove the black section on that worm if I want to shorten it up a little bit and fish just that black corky with it. If they're really particular and I need to downsize that even more, but again, these are big wild native fish. Typically don't get pushed back or scared by a whole lot. They are perhaps, you know, kind of up against or hiding in cover as this water gets gin clear. So you're going to be running your floats right along the structure. You want to get that stuff right up into the wood, right up into the overhanging brush that's giving them a little bit of cover that they feel protected. That's not to say they won't come out and ambush something that comes floating by. And if you are doubling up your chances by offering 2 opportunities in your single presentation, you're just doubling your chances, okay? Now, one other presentation that works extremely well this time of year, actually it works good throughout the year, but again, we're talking towards the end of the year here, where again, we have the gin clear conditions are getting towards that gin clear low, and so we're trying to be a little bit more stealthy. I'll switch to these clear floats. These clear floats have been proven time and time again, you know, especially in midday, higher light on the water. You know, for crying out loud, we just came off some mid-70s, 80-degree temperatures, full sun on the water, low clear conditions. I mean, we're talking summer run conditions in regards to some of this stuff. So clear floats definitely will aid you in getting it done. Again, I can, you know, run that as a slip float, or I can pin that, because what we're doing here is a vertical presentation, much like a jig, but what I've opted to do is simply take a jig head and cut a full-size, you know, 5-inch worm back and pin that onto a jig head. Now, some things to think about: water clarity and bright colors. I like to scale things down, go with a little more reds, purples, blacks, things like that. Even get into some browns and tans if you need to mimic more natural baits in the water. But you know, something this small, the chartreuse paddle tail on this doesn't bother me with that purple and black, because again, it's contrast. It's not an overwhelming huge presence that's going to make a steelhead kind of push back away from it. It's more curiosity to them than I think anything. This is simply a full-size worm that we've cut back and put onto that black jig head, and colored the front of the worm a little bit black just to kind of make that section of the worm look longer. You can do that. These black worms and chartreuse paddle tails work really well also. This is a little 3-inch worm by the time I got done cutting the front part of that off, and that has, you know, a little bit brighter head. I would run something like this in the morning when you have lower light conditions, or late in the afternoon moving towards evening, finishing out your day. Put something on that has just a little more bling to it when you're getting into those lower light conditions. This weekend, actually, as we're rolling into this weather change, we have a little bit more cloud cover than we did in the previous couple days. So you can revert back and forth simply based on overcast or not, clear days, depending on what your weather's going to do, and you know, kind of switch it up a little bit, give it a change, and see if that doesn't entice a fish. If they're real standoffish and you're really having a hard time getting them, you may even want to scale down to something very small. And you notice on this one here, I haven't even painted the jig head, okay? I got a nice little, that's a UV worm, micro, and I've put that on a 16th ounce jig. This is like a summer run rig that I would definitely use time and time again in those clear conditions. This isn't going to scare anything, might entice something to come up and bite, but we're getting down pretty small. Not sure we need to go quite that small for these late winter fish, but it is an option if you're finding you're struggling and still can't find fish. One other thing I want to mention is that if all I have is some heads that are, you know, bright pink, and I don't want to necessarily put those in the water. This here on this purple worm was a bright pink, and I simply took my Sharpie and colored that up, and that actually stays on there really well when you take a permanent marker and color up your jig head with that permanent marker. Add a little bit to that worm just to give it a little bit of color contrast if you want, but simply coloring up jig heads, if you don't have any and you know your conditions are going to be more so clear than not, and or you hit the river and you didn't actually bring a wide range of colors on your jig heads. Maybe all you have is some of your brighter colors from earlier in the season. If you simply take a Sharpie with you to get you through the day, you can change the color of your jig heads. You can change the color portions of your worms. You can color those up to give them some darkness. Change that from a 2-color presentation to a 3-color presentation, affording you some contrast. So just a few things to look at or think about as we wind down and get towards the end of our steelhead season here. Vertical presentation, dragging lead. The difference is what your float's telling you, what you're doing. If you haven't found success on steelhead thus far this season, you still have some time to get out there and fish these conditions that we're presented with, and hopefully you find some success, maybe trying a few things that you had not done earlier this year. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of help. We're going to jump out for a commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to be back in the kitchen with Chef Kelly and Sheri, and they're going to put the final cook on that Cashew Crusted Steelhead, and then we'll see how they wrap that up. We'll get our forks and get ready to delve into that. But more FHN after this commercial break. Don't go anywhere.
What if there was a smarter way to search for your new home? Introducing the Better Homes and Gardens real estate website and mobile app. This revolutionary new search tool puts your needs first. Narrow your search to what matters most to your family, like school data, school districts, and even walk scores. Get easy access to your local affiliated agent, as well as unique and local insights about neighborhoods and properties directly within the app. With synced and saved preferences, you'll always pick up wherever you left off. Get your smarter search started today with Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate.
everyone, welcome back to Fish Hunt Northwest. We're in the kitchen here with Chef Kelly today, and we're about to get the steelhead that we've been baking up
Yes.
out of the oven. And what's our next step then?
Well, we have to finish our mango salsa. So
All right.
I've got my diced mangoes right here.
All ready to go.
Yeah. Okay.
Mango.
And then we're going to dice up, well, we're going to julienne some red onions. Okay. Break those up a little bit. All right, so then we're going to add, let's see, we're going to add a little bit of lime juice.
Wow, about a half of one? Okay.
Not full half.
Just short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to add some heat. Let's add some jalapeno.
Now, do you shop for on the hotter side of jalapenos? I always wonder.
Well, you know, jalapenos can vary a lot.
Okay.
You know, they can be like, sometimes they taste like a bell pepper. And then sometimes they're like, ooh, well, that kind of got me. Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we're going to go a full jalapeno on this guy.
Listen to that knife go.
All right.
So that's about a medium-sized to large jalapeno. Yeah.
Okay, so then we're going to add just a little bit of ginger. I like the ginger in there. Tiny bit of garlic if you want to do it. You can leave that out if you want.
Okay.
A little bit of green onion. A little bit of cilantro. And about a tablespoon worth of sugar. I'm using brown sugar.
Brown
today.
sugar?
Yeah, I mean, you could use...
Yeah, sure. Go add some more that I can't have.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Your keto diet's killing me.
It's killing me today. Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, what we're looking for is a little bit of sweetness here, a little bit of heat.
Wow. Amazing colors.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could add a little bit of, you know, red bell pepper in here, but that's good too.
Yeah, you don't use much ground pepper in this. No?
And we're also going to add just a little bit of oil. You know, when I make pico de gallo, I actually add a little bit of oil because it kind of rounds out the flavor. Because you kind of have it, and it's just, you know, when you have just the lime juice in there.
Kind of smooths it a little bit, maybe?
Yeah. Okay. So we're good to go right there. Now you can make this ahead of time so that, you know, the flavors kind of go in there. So a couple hours ahead of time, absolutely, you can go do that.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're going to go tend to our fish. Okay.
Wow. Smells amazing, Chef.
Little bit of spring batch.
A little bit of spring brat.
Yep, nice little color on the crust. Okay,
You want the rice?
Some rice?
Okay.
And what she's doing is she's plating some short grain rice, which is you know, a little bit. It sticks together a little better.
Yeah.
And
it's
a little
sticky.
easier to eat. I know it's a little hard to deal with sometimes, but you know, it definitely has a much more fun way to eat it.
Yeah.
Than chasing, you know, grains of rice all over the plate.
And just.
Okay, so.
Chef? Your assistant isn't that much of an assistant right now.
That's fine. Oh, man. This is. Okay, there we go.
All right.
All right, so now we're going to plate our fish. Okay, let's set this up just a little bit. Okay, go with our mango salsa. Let's do 3 points.
Look at the colors. I just love that.
Good deal. Okay. So then we have our sweet soy. I talked about this before.
Wow. And you know, everybody can do this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There you go, guys. This is my cashew crusted winter run steelhead with mango salsa, a little bit of sweet soy. Easy stuff, guys. Come on, try it.
Yeah, I think you probably changed a lot of people's minds, Chef. I know you did mine, and now I'm going to have to cheat today. But before we get started on that, we're going to throw it back to the guys in the studio.
That looks pretty amazing. Cashew crusted steelhead over rice with mango salsa, if I got all that right, what they got going on in there. Ridiculous. The guy is ridiculous.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm watching this thing go, and Sheri scooping up the rice, and that was going pretty good, and all of a sudden, I don't know what happened, but that rice just totally kicked her ass. It's just like, what? Anyway, they recovered well, got through it. Great presentation. Right. The nice thing is, when we get down here, that food is sitting ready for us to go to the kitchen, so I can't wait to get to that. But fantastic job. That looked absolutely delicious. So, Kyle, you're still here. Thanks for not leaving.
Yeah.
As we got through those next couple segments there.
Well,
and,
there's still cookies left. So
well, yeah.
A long way to go.
It looks like you guys got through about half of them while I was in the bait lab there working my tail off. But hey, we got a couple of questions that have come up in regards to the Broodstock program. Tommy, there's one out there, something about scent.
Yeah, it was Shane Vanderlinde, Big Shane. He said, for Kyle, how much does scent play a factor in this river? Or does the broodstock seem to take some of the technicality out of it?
You know, with steelhead, scent never hurts. Okay, and there's products for everything, so I don't think scent hurts. However, with these steelhead, I just think that they're more apt to bite a bait. As in, you know, that's why we're using beads and jigs and stuff. Sure. You can add it, and it isn't going to hurt. I don't think the broodstock has anything to do with it as much as it's just now we just have more fish in the river. Right. More fish means better chance of getting biters. But as we start seeing the bite study, I don't know if it's necessarily that scents are going to trigger each fish, because I used to think it was until I realized that beads outfished.
Yeah, how many times
my eggs. I think I got pretty good bait.
Yeah.
Now, salmon are completely different, but as for steelhead, it's presentation. You know, then it's sight, color, then scent, and where salmon, it's presentation, scent.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep, I agree. Interestingly enough, you guys can fish bait on the Siletz year round, can't you?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Wow.
Another rarity. I mean, you're taking, there's wild fish in the river. They're broodstocking them, for crying out loud. They're not catching all of them. They're not all going to broodstock. Some are caught and released, but they're still able to use bait.
There's
where our rivers, there is, you know, a drop dead date, no bait, artificial lure, you know, barbless hook, no scent, no bait, no nothing, right? So they have a little different approach down there on their wild fish. You guys still take fish out of the river to hold them for a picture, can you not?
Well, we talked about that, and it's kind of funny, you know. The reason we talked about that was the rules. I mean, to look at what a fish can handle, it's how we handle that fish. Am I rough with it on the sand? Did I have to fight this fish twice as long to get that glory shot where the fin is barely touching the water here in Washington, but the lips are out of it? Right. So we have to put it in context. Yeah. Now, I can have that same fish in the water and do a 2-second dropping in. Now, the unfortunate, there's just a lot of days our clients just don't get photos with fish because we're in the boat. It's not safe. Right. But sometimes we can get on bait and get a nice photo, and I think if you can, we're splitting hairs there. You know, the keep wet thing is an important thing. Yeah, it is very important, but it's how you keep them wet. I mean, let's just be honest.
Yeah, the fin dip is never.
We're moving them from broodstock tanks, and we're seeing high survivability rate.
Yep.
With almost 32 pairs right now. You know, we have one fish that didn't make it. Yeah. And I'm not afraid to say that is an incredible number. Right. Yeah, we're going to lose more of that just with catch and release.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
So I think that is a testament to how we are, the care we're doing it, and that's the guide's responsibility to educate the importance of, you know, releasing and catching a fish. And hey, guys, sorry about the photo, but take it in the net.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, really, we're there for the fish.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the program is continuing to prove its success rate, and you know, along with the Siletz and the Wilson, the Trask Project, and other rivers that are going on. And I'm hoping that we can continue to move forward here in Washington State, adding more broodstock programs. And I'll keep repeating it, you know, in-basin broodstock programs, right? In-basin broodstock programs, taking those in-basin genetics and producing fish off of those adult fish that are going to return to that basin, support that basin. And, you know, in some of these programs, the state agencies don't have the funds and the persons and the resources. And when you get out there on social media and talk to folks, hey, there are a host of folks that are willing to volunteer some time. Now, saying I'm willing to volunteer time and then actually showing up on day of, you know, needed help is two different things. But I honestly feel that a lot of folks have great intentions and they're willing to get involved in some of this stuff and assist. I'm just hoping that this type of process continues to expand out. We have a whole nother education component coming down the road here on a future episode of Fish Hunt Northwest in referencing and educating what we now know to hold true hatchery wild, correct? So big changes coming in that regard. Differences of opinion, of course, like everything, but I think when you couple broodstocking with research that shows, statistic data that shows and supports hatchery wild components in river, what's truly going on there, it's an eye-opener for a lot of folks. And we will tackle that topic here in the short future, along with, as I spoke of earlier in the show, some of the gillnet stuff going on. And just, you know, at the end of the day, all these user groups, we all want more fish in the river, right? And some will even advocate that as we move forward, if there are certain systems that are in such dire straits, maybe some of these systems need to be shut down for a couple of years, which means all user groups don't have access to them and see if they're going to rebound. But the issue is so big. The issue is so big, and we don't have enough time every week in 2 hours to. But we can chip away at this thing. But when you talk ocean conditions and environmental impacts, and just, you know, our changing climate. And are we still logging or aren't we? And, you know, what impacts and development do we still push out our rivers and into the ocean? And, you know, the pinniped predation problem. Nobody's even hardly talking about the birds. You know, birds and pinnipeds don't really care if it's a salmon smolt or steelhead smolt or what it is, right? It's food, it's opportunity. And in some regards, man-made barriers obviously are affecting it. I mean, there's a host of issues.
The cormorant thing's huge. The amount of fish each bird eats a day, an hour, is insane.
Some of the studies that have been done to show on tagged outbounding smolt, and they find these wire code tags in the stomach contents of these birds, and it really starts opening your eyes. If you can get a hold of some of those reports and start reading that stuff, you're going to find that the data's out there in some regards to support some of this information. They know what's going on at certain levels. It's just taking the next steps, finding the funding to do additional research to prove unequivocally that this is truly what's going on. Now we need to move. Now, broodstocking programs have been proven, and I really like the breeding of biters.
Yeah, the bite study. We're going to know a lot on that after this year, where, you know, with that, a lot of it was done in the Alsea River. So.
Yep. We got another question, Tommy.
Yeah, Sean Ibben, he wrote in here and said, "Hey, what's your thought on holding pens on our rivers to raise smolts versus in hatcheries?" What do you think about that?
Well,
that's a good question.
We used to do that, hatch boxes and stuff like that. The problem with that is accountability of the fish. Now, that's the biggest reason that I've heard from it. I mean, back in this early days, it was done a lot and with a lot of fish, but nowadays are we putting in too much for the resource? Are we, it's just hard to, the accountability factor of those are tough. I know right now with the Siletz, part of that money that we are fundraising is the Siletz Angler Association is we're identifying, we get to pick where the money that we have goes. What projects we want to assist with ODF. It could be more pins for collection of broodstock. It could also be holding pins to help with scatter planting.
That's real cool.
And I'm using the term mid-river holding. You know, we do have a facility on the Siletz that's been out for a while up Rock Creek that's might be an option if, you know, for it needs some work for sure. It's tribal. I mean, it could be a great opportunity for us to have more scatter planting options to keep fish kind of not all going to just the one place. Summer fisheries did that a lot. Summer steelhead, that was a big thing for summer with a lot of success. And so there's a number of things, but our guys are really engaged to kind of identify where we're going to put the money, so it's not it's accounted for.
Sure.
Right.
Well, go ahead.
What curiously, what's your guys' return rate on those broodstock fish? Do you know a percentage of it at all?
I wouldn't know a number on that right now. I just don't know.
That'd be interesting to know.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking last night, back when we were,
I'd have to say it's better than, our old ones where I think it was 1 or 2%. If I wasn't mistaken, it was higher than that.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, nowadays a 1% return is considered a successful rate. Whereas when I was a kid, a 3% return was at times more the norm. And when you go from 10,000 steelhead in your Puyallup River to less than 9, that's a huge point of concern, right?
Yeah.
So I would love it. Some of our co-managers out there on the coast, they have rivers with 3 and 4% return, big healthy fish. And they're going to the same ocean as the surrounding rivers that aren't on the tribal lands, So there's a lot of things weighing in here that cause either success or failures, right? Broodstocking, in my mind, and I think everybody in this room is one that is proving itself to be worth its weight. And hopefully that educational component continues, and we can start seeing more of that here in Washington State. So we are going to jump out for a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to simply close out the show. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here on FHN. welcome back. We are about there, boys. We are ready to close out the show. Few questions, few interactions on the old Facebook, and lots of insightful comments here. We are trying to pick up on everything you guys are throwing down, and we'll try to make some adjustments, change a few things graphics-wise and whatnot. But first show out of the gate,
we made it.
Yeah.
We made it.
We did it.
We kind of did it, right?
We made it.
A little preview of what's to come and a few things to tweak, and we'll continue to get this brand out there. But very excited to bring this to you folks each and every week. Please do us a favor, get this pushed out there. Share it on your Facebook and your social media venues. Share it on your Instagram. Make folks aware of what we're trying to do here at Fish Hunt Northwest. Can't thank Kyle enough for coming up. And I know you and I will be getting some fishing in the future. Yep. We'll be out there drowning our Potski eggs and trying to get some...
We're talking springers. It's next, so we might do spring Chinook here soon. So.
Yeah, if you are available, speaking of which, this Saturday down at Sportco, they have their Fisherman's Expo. Oh. Actually, it's going all weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We have a host of folks giving presentations on Saturday, all different insightful types of presentations. There's folks there. I believe Ed Iman's talking walleye. Jason Brooks will be down there talking kokanee. I'm going to give about a 45-minute presentation on fishing bait under a float for a spring Chinook in your tributaries. Now, we don't have that many tributaries to go after this year, but you do have some opportunity with some decent numbers to pursue. So I'm going to try to help you with that. She'll walk you through the process of how I like to fish bait vertically under a float for springers. They can be pretty finicky. We're going to talk different scents, different baits, get you squared away on just how to present that. And then, the following week, and we'll mention it next Thursday, but man, get ready if you haven't figured out what's going on. And this is our region here in Washington, so Oregon, Idaho, I apologize, but Sportco's got a big hunting university going on down there the end of the month, 30th and 31st. Cannot wait to sit in on that. Several of our buddies are going to be down there. Yeah. Jason Brooks will be down there. Jason Brooks will be there, but who else is going to be there? Phelps is going to be there.
Yep.
Tom Ryle's going to be there.
Yep.
Got deer on Saturday, elk on Sunday. Fantastic opportunity to hone your hunting skills. So with that, any last comments? Anybody?
No. Anybody? I think we're good.
Anybody? Can I have a cookie?
You can have a cookie. There's a lot. I got to get one to Lisa too. Yeah.
There's enough there. I'm actually going to take 2 of those and take them in the kitchen. And after I get eaten my Cashew Crusted Steelhead plated on that steamed rice and mango salsa, I'm going to do a cookie, peanut butter, and ice cream sandwich chaser. So
I thought you were going to say like a cookie dance.
No,
I did that when it came out of the drawer.
Yeah, perfect. All right, Kyle, can't thank you enough, man. Thanks for coming to the studio. Appreciate it. With that, we're going to close out the show. Join us here next week. YouTube channel. Push it out there for us. Let folks know they can join us here each week, Thursday night, 6 to 8 p.m. West Coast time. And appreciate you joining in this evening, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week right here on FHN.